you.
Yeah, Lucy, we're here with Governor Landry right now. We're walking down Conti Street toward Bourbon Street. We're the first ones here that are going to be actually having an opportunity to see the scene here just a little more than 24 hours after it. Governor, what's happening right now? What's the process?
Look, we continue to work on the security and the investigation component. I think that people need to understand that it's a two-pronged process, right? We've got a football game that we are going to put on today, but at the same time, we've got an active investigation. I've been briefed by the FBI on a constant basis. They've been pouring resources into the city. The Louisiana State Police is doing a fantastic job of working with NOPD. As we saw earlier and got to visit with some of the troops, we mobilized an entire MP company yesterday. What that does is create a force multiplier, right? So that helps us to have additional resources to further protect the city, and that takes pressure off of those in law enforcement that are responsible for completing the investigation.
And we're about to walk up right here where that terrorist, where his rampage ended, just steps away from the corner right here. Taking your first look, I mean, this has got to be a pretty hard sight.
It is. Look, it's extremely heartbreaking. I mean, look, our prayers and condolences continue to go out to those families who lost loved ones. We still have people in the hospital that are struggling for their lives as well. This is a horrific tragedy, and it unfortunately is something that the Americans have seen as terrorists continue to want to harm Americans out there. And I've continued to say it. I said it yesterday that the only way to protect people from evil is to crush it, and you do it by empowering these men and women to do their job and to ensure that we bring people to justice. And so we're going to ensure that this investigation comes to a complete. We're going to give people accurate information. I know that there are a lot of unanswered questions, and especially for the victims' families as well. We're going to start to call into those families, especially those from Louisiana, because we had a lot of our citizens that were impacted and affected, and let them know that we support them. And we're going to try to get them the answers as quickly as we can. But we want to make sure that the answers that we get the public are accurate. Right. We don't want to speculate. We want to make sure that we get accurate information and get some closure.
And I want to ask you real quick about that. There was some supposition about potential persons of interest connected to one of the potential IEDs. I know you've been speaking with the FBI. Have you heard anything about those 4 people? Are they cleared at all?
Look, I'm not going to comment. I'm going to let the FBI clear those people along with LSP. Here's what I tell you. They are making sure that we are turning every leaf over. If a person comes up as a either potential suspect or a person of interest, they're being found, they're being sought, they're being talked to, and there is a lot of work. Look, I think it's important for everyone in the city and the state and the country to know these men and women have been working 24/7 around the clock with not a lot of sleep. And they do it because they care. They have a special DNA that says we want to serve the public. And at the end of the day, we want New Orleans to get back to business. And we also want to remember all of those who tragically lost their lives on the street.
Thank you, Governor. We appreciate it. Our first look here at Bourbon Street, quiet now, but we hope that it returns to that shrine of frivolity that it always has been.
Well, look, that's our hope as well. I think each one of those who lost their life here came here to have a good time and to enjoy a great city. And it would be a tragedy if we were not able to bring the city back to that so that their loss would not be in vain, and people got to be able to enjoy the city again in a way that they did up until this tragic event.
All right. Thank you, Governor. We appreciate it. I know you're going to go ahead and take a tour of the area. We'll let you go ahead and do that. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Be safe, all right?
Take care.
Yeah, hey Kelsey. We're here on Bourbon Street right now. I've got Josh Roberson with me. We're both just attached with the governor's team as they came down Bourbon Street, getting that first look at the scene here. Now that it has been processed and sanitized, it still hasn't been opened yet to the public. There are a few people out here that are, one, cleaning up. There's just a small handful of workers that we've seen, but mostly state police out here maintaining the integrity of Bourbon Street until it is reopened. We're going to go ahead and get on the side here because one of those IV waste water trucks coming through, and we want to make sure that they can do their thing. Josh, you were out here all morning yesterday, throughout the day, to see Bourbon Street in this light right now. It's a different look for sure than the videos that we've been seeing on social media.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, and Rob, I know you were talking, we watched all this with the governor when we came through here, and I think somebody had made the comment, and this is the cleanest they'd ever seen Bourbon Street, and it's at the same time very unfortunate that the reasoning for it, and all these trucks that are coming through right now, power washers and crews who are sweeping up, and I think Sidney Torres is just a block down from us right now. He was on the phone with somebody. Of course, he was, his crews are being let in right now. Of course, we know they have the contract with the city to pick up trash and clean up the French Quarter, and unfortunately, this is one of their first really big asks here going into New Year's and New Year's Eve. And we can turn and we can both walk if you want, and we'll go down to show you Canal, because this entire stretch we're on, Rob, and I know you said it was Royal Sonesta is how far this terrorist, this suspect who was later killed by police, made it in that white pickup truck before crashing into that crane. But in that short stretch, which we've walked now multiple times, this was several people killed, up to 15 people killed now, and several who are still in the hospital. And so, we're walking right here where this truck basically started, just a block away, and made it down, like you said, down to Royal Sonesta.
Right, and hey, last Mardi Gras, you and I walked down Bourbon Street after we were done, and enjoyed our time together down here. And I remember walking through this area, and anyone who's been on Bourbon Street during the Mardi Gras time or through Carnival weekends, you can barely walk through here, right? And so, I mean, to see the place empty, and you've done plenty of reports out here at 5 a.m. and it's not empty, right? So it's an eerie sight, but thankfully we do think that this is going to reopen at some point today, and it'll start to get back to normal because, as most people were saying, Helena Moreno this morning telling us, you can't let the terrorists win, and by shutting things down and living in fear, that's letting the terrorists win. So we want to kind of give you all this first look. This is an exclusive look at the scene here where this terrorist attack happened before it is reopened on Bourbon Street. You're seeing it only here on Fox 8 right now. This is a tragedy, to say the least, but also something that needs to be learned from. And I think it seems like city leaders, the New Orleans Police Department, is steadfast in saying that they will take everything that is gleaned from this, and moving forward will be able to ensure that safety standards are increased. And that begins today with the Sugar Bowl.
You were saying earlier you were speaking with the governor, and we kind of got put in with him and his crew and the military and state police as they all surveyed this area. And I know they were explaining to the governor, and I know you were right there, and so was I, as he was getting it explained to him, those bollards on the ground, which we've walked over a couple of them now as we're walking down Bourbon Street. What were they explaining to the governor? Were you there? You were right kind of next to him there.
Right. So this is a project that started in November now of last year to increase the safety protection, the bollard repair, renovation really of Bourbon Street. Started in November, was supposed to be completed before the Super Bowl. So it was something that's supposed to harden Bourbon Street, especially when big crowds are out here, to prevent some sort of similar type attack. The NOPD understood that these weren't ready and that this process wasn't completed yet, which is why they say they had a car blocking Bourbon Street. But then they also have this wedge here, this giant piece of equipment that this big piece of metal raises up And I mean, you can imagine, Ann Kirkpatrick and several other city leaders had said, look, a terrorist who's hell-bent on hurting people is going to figure out one way or another to do it. Look, could have driven down Canal Street, could have driven down, wherever, but Bourbon Street is where all the people are, and you can understand that if this was up, it'd be near impossible for the car to travel this way because of the gallery and the poles there. I mean, right here, he'd have to squeeze through this spot if he was trying to drive onto the sidewalk. But if this was engaged, you can think that this likely would have been a different story.
And I know I wanted to say too, because just of where we are and how eerie it is. First, that even on the quietest hour of Bourbon Street, there are still people.
Right.
And I think you and me would both agree that walking down this street right now when there isn't a soul other than one person sweeping in City Torres with his IV crews, that this is by far one of the eeriest things ever. And then knowing the reason why it's so quiet, because it is still closed off to the public. And real quick, Cole, if you just turn around real quick and show, and when we show that not cell phone video, but that video that we've seen so many times now of when that white pickup truck made this right here, went around a police unit, similar to the one that Cole's looking at right there at the foot of Bourbon Street, hits that turn right next to this Walgreens, and obviously hits the gas so hard, and you may be looking at video of it now. That video now is so eerie, standing right here and knowing that anyone who's standing where you or I were standing,
right, yeah,
or where we're currently standing.
And there was video I know I saw of just the car traveling through this block and the high rate of speed that pickup truck was able to pick up here between just this first 100 block. And while we have the opportunity, we're going to walk you through those 3 blocks here of Bourbon Street from the start, where this horror happened at the foot of Canal and Bourbon, and then to the almost 3 blocks now toward Conti, where that truck ran into a forklift crane machine that ended up stopping it. Think about that. That's what stopped it. It doesn't. You have to imagine he didn't intend to run into that. He was trying to hurt as many people as possible. But if that wasn't there, maybe the car would have gone even more blocks. And you could see the video of the truck here. I mean, it's just a chilling sight, especially considering that it could have been even worse. And certainly seeing this now, you can't be anything but thankful to the law enforcement that have been working around the clock, not only to keep us safe, to keep the rest of the crowd safe, but also to the ones that rushed to that truck, Josh, and rushed toward the face of danger. And when those gunshots started firing, took that man out and saved, as city leaders had said, saved thousands of lives, they suspect.
I mean, he was fully prepared to do as much damage and take as much life as humanly possible, and he succeeded in a horrific way. But yes, I mean, there was this crane that was right up, it's about a block from where we are right now, which he finally did crash into. And, police did respond. It may have been even this corner or the next one where we had that video that showed there was probably a dozen police officers in full gear and full uniform, and you see them all sprinting in this direction.
Right, and then, during those times, Mardi Gras, big bowl games, New Year's Eve, there are officers on every single corner of Bourbon Street. You can't walk more than half a block without seeing an officer on Bourbon Street, if not a handful at each corner. So you know that they were ready to respond, and it's just a tragedy to think that someone was able to take advantage of that gap in security, and because of that, now 15 people have lost their lives, 30 others still injured, some of them still in the hospital. You see that video there of the police officers just darting, and that's the kind of stuff that really it steals you. It makes you feel like, okay, there are people out there who are ready to face that danger and are ready to do what they can to protect. And I mean, there's a lot of blame going around from one way or another, but when you think about overall, the fact that there are people out there that are willing to fight to save others is something that gives you a little bit of peace.
I mean, the video is shocking. I know we just saw it, but it does show you. I mean, they were standing there, and then it was instant. It was into action. It was the training that they all have and taking over. And again, New Orleans is known for its crowd control, and that's because we have so many events like this. But those uniformed officers jumping into action like that, they saved as many lives as they could in that moment, trying to stop that person, that suspect that we now know was just like you said, hell-bent on committing an act of terror. And again, we're right here in the area. And Rob, I think if you're right, this would be the spot right here.
This is Bienville. So we're about now 2 blocks in. This would be the 3rd block now that he was able to travel. And so you're with us basically on the route that this terrorist took as he committed these acts of horror. And as we approach the Royal Sonesta, a beautiful hotel, storied hotel out here on Bourbon Street with so much history from Mardi Gras and beyond. You can see the video from the balcony of the truck and the response then of those officers trying to get people away from the scene, trying to get people away from the danger, and knowing that all of this is happening in really the hottest spot of New Orleans, Bourbon Street, one of the most storied streets, not only in New Orleans, the state, the country, but honestly the world. Bourbon Street is known across the world. And this morning, it is bare. It's an absolute eerie sight, and now we are just moments away from approaching that site where the terrorist truck crashed into that crane forklift, Josh. And we believe that it was right about here where that happened. And you can see it's clean. Everything's been sanitized. They processed the scene using various techniques. We were told to do the investigation, the FBI, and starting late last night, they began that process to clean this and get things open.
I know we've been basically posted up at the very end here at Canal looking into Bourbon Street and wondering, throughout the whole process yesterday, seeing all of the crews, the coroner vans posted right at the mouth of Bourbon and coming in and out. And obviously where we are right now is still not open to the public. We were given access here because we went with the governor and the military to see as they were briefing him on the situation and had a chance to speak with him too. And I know that at this point right now, it's a waiting game to see if and when this otherwise beautiful, popular, as we said, not just the most popular street in New Orleans, but one of the most popular streets in America. And now wondering if and when it will be reopened to the public, because as you've heard the governor say and Helena Moreno, city council president, say they're going to that Sugar Bowl game tonight, not even necessarily because they're a fan of either team, but because they don't want to live in fear. We heard people say that to us yesterday on the street, that they're so saddened by this horrific event and the thinking of the victims, but remembering that this person who did this act had a purpose, and it was to put fear into the hearts of people like you and me and to the people who are here. And there's people who are just saying, no, we're not going to let that happen.
Yeah, no, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. And to give you a little bit of insight about what's going to happen today here on Bourbon Street, obviously the cleaning process nearing completion right now. The next part of that situation is going to be the opening it up to the supply crews that need to come in, that need to supply up the restaurants and the linens that need to be replaced in the hotels, and then just the various crews that are down here that need to get things ready for the guests. I'm going to see if we can maybe chat with I believe this might be the general manager of the Royal Sonesta down here, and see if maybe we can get a word with him while we're here, because this just really is a frustrating situation right now. I wonder, sir, if you'd be willing to just chat with me for a second. I gotcha. Okay. Is the hotel planning to reopen to guests soon, or do you know? No. Okay. All right. I understand. No, it's definitely a fluid situation, and just want to try to take that opportunity to give some more information. But it's understandable right now. I mean, you've got all these businesses that work 24 hours a day, in some cases 365 days a year, and today they're closed. It's a somber sight, to say the least. But again, we will have an update on what's happening with Bourbon Street, hopefully around 10 o'clock. We know we're going to get an update from the governor's office. Then, excuse me, so once those crews come through, the supply crews, typically in the morning from about 6 to 9 on a regular day is when you get the beer trucks coming through and the crews coming through to pick up the linens from the hotels and whatnot. That process still needs to happen. It's likely that they'll let that happen first before reopening it to the crowds, to trying to expedite that, and then moving forward, they potentially could open it at some point later today. So we'll get some more information on that. I spoke with some workers down here on Bourbon Street. They told me that they've talked with their management, and they say that they are expecting to open today. And they say they will be open if they can. A lot of questions still up in the air. A fluid situation. I know we keep saying that. It sounds like platitudes. It just is what it is at this point. And we will continue to monitor everything that's happening, bring you the most up-to-date information that we can as we continue to cover this absolutely horrific event. I got Sidney Torres here as well, walking down the street. It looks like this process is clean. We'll grab him real quick. Sidney, the sanitation process seems to be nearing completion right now?
It is. I mean, we have Bourbon 100%. We're doing some last-minute touch-ups, but we're finishing up Bourbon Street. The rest of the quarter we're working on in the back end and some of the side streets, Dauphine, Burgundy, also Decatur. But, you know, we want to do some final touches and go through, because they tipped over some litter cans for IEDs and things like that. So we want to go through, make sure all those are back upright, you know, cleaning all that up. But we feel that we should be done here in the next hour.
All right, and then after that, you think that process begins to try to let the work crews in to supply the restaurants and the bars and everything like that?
That's my understanding. I think what's going to happen is once we turn it over, once we're finished and we turn it over to the mayor and the governor and the FBI, they're going to make the decision on when to let people in. But I think they're starting to let some supply trucks in, very few, but they're starting to let some of the food and beer and liquor trucks come in, and that way they can start supplying. But I think they're doing that so that way when they do open, whether it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I've heard all kind of different times, the plan is that the quarter is stocked and people can come and get drinks and eat and kind of somewhat get back to normal with such a tragedy that we had.
Right, because I mean that's the idea, is to not let the tragedy, not let that terror scare us away from what so many of us love here and what so many tourists came here to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is New Orleanians are strong people, and we're gonna fight, and we're gonna come back. But we have to show respect, and I think the political officials, even though the crime scene has been cleaned up and everything is ready to go and they're stocking the restaurants and the bars, I think they want to show some respect as well to the victims and the people that were hurt and the people that were killed and also the officers who defended us. So I think that's a process that they want to go through. Again, I don't know for sure, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, because we're going to turn it over to them within the next hour to 2 hours for them to have it back and do what they want to do after we're finished.
All right, well, I won't hold you up any longer so we can get that process moving. We appreciate it, Sidney. Take care. Be safe out there. All right, so once again, this is your first look at the scene at Bourbon Street after that horrific terror attack here in New Orleans, killing 15 people, leaving 30 injured now. We're going to continue to follow this. In the meantime, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right. Thank you so much, Rob. We're definitely going to get back to you as soon as we can.